While supported by one of the most vibrant and fastest growing startup ecosystems in the world, Indian startups are not immune to global uncertainty. With the inflow of funding winter and employee expectations changing dramatically, steering your business towards success requires strong adaptive leadership and upskilling the workforce. TiE Delhi-NCR, in partnership with LinkedIn Sales Solution, brings to you a masterclass to provide these insights, the best practices, and customer success stories to empower leaders on how to adopt a new growth formula that will enable your revenue teams in a changed B2B landscape. In this session today, we'll cover an exclusive fireside chat with Karunya Sampath, co-founder and CEO of Payoda Technology, and Arjun Pratap, CEO and founder, Edge moderated by Rahul Sehgal, India Head, LinkedIn Sales Solution, SMB and Startup Acquisition. Post the session, we would have an overview on the LinkedIn Sales Solution platform by Mihika Chopra, Account Director, LinkedIn Sales Solutions. Once the two sessions are over, then we would go into live Q&A with the LinkedIn team. They'll be there to answer any questions you have. But in the interim, if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them across in your questions in the Q&A box. With this, over to you, Rahul. Please take forward this session.
Thank you, Nitin. Good morning and welcome everyone to today's exclusive fireside chat with two of our guest speakers, Karunya and Arjun. I'm thrilled to be here today at the start of what is expected to be a year of uncertainty across the globe. But before I start, I would like to introduce our speakers. Karunya Sampath, she is an experienced founder with a demonstrated history of working in the information technology products and services industry. She's a strong business development professional with a master's degree focused in computer software engineering from PSG College of Technology. She's currently the founder, CEO at Payoda Technology Incorporated and on the board of HealthView X Elements and AppView X Incorporated. Welcome, Karunya. Our next speaker is Arjun Pratap, who is the founder and CEO at Edge. He's an avid reader, technology enthusiast, and veteran in sales, tech, and management. Arjun launched Edge to solve the most challenging talent acquisition and workforce optimization challenges. Under his enterprising and able leadership, Edge has been recognized by Gartner, Deloitte, NVIDIA, NASSCOM, and Google Launchpad, among others. Before Edge, Arjun was associated with Speedera Networks and Akamai Technologies. He holds a postgraduate degree in information systems and international business from the University of Sydney, Australia. Thank you for joining us both. I would like to start and set the tone a bit, by talking about the startup industry or the startup landscape as a whole. We have seen in the last so many years, and especially 5 to 6 years, India has been emerging as the third largest ecosystem for startups globally after US and China. We do know that this sector, no doubt, is navigating, success through these unprecedented times. And needless to say, I've learned that personally, while the Indian startup ecosystem is supported by one of the most dynamic and fastest growing ecosystems in the world, you all are not immune to the macroeconomic headwinds, especially with the flow of venture capital funding beginning to see a downward slope and employee expectations really getting changed here. This becomes all the more crucial time for us as leaders to join forces and collaborate towards overall success. I would like to start by asking you, Karunya, you've been with Payoda for now more than 17 years as a co-founder and CEO. I'm certain that the journey has been incredible, as you must have witnessed a lot of transformation, especially over the last few years. Can you really share what this uncertainty that we are all seeing looks like in your opinion, and how has this impacted your business outlook?
Thank you for the question. I think it's very, very relevant, something that we're all constantly thinking about. It's an everyday thought for all of us today. Payoda today, being a global business company, we have clients across the globe. And yes, we are facing the uncertainty caused by geopolitical as well as, this economical, global economy. This uncertainty definitely exists. This is something that's definitely not in any of our control. But what at Payoda we're trying to do is something that we can control. We're honing in on our core competencies, core strengths. We're focusing on our strengths, right? We are in the people business, end of it all, right? And we go back to the basics of focusing on our culture of transparency, teamwork, and continuous learning, right? Reassessing our core competency when it comes to understanding what our current customers need, and also looking at what the current shifting market scenarios are and how we can position ourselves is in a way trying to find the opportunity in the uncertainty that exists today. We are today Payot as a services company, right? We play in the area of innovation, talent, and cost efficiencies. So that said, and the whole digital transformation being accelerated with COVID and post-COVID, there is a digital era that's only going to, speed forward. And finding the right opportunities is something that we look through every uncertainty and try to have our policies, whether it's human, tech processes, customer retention scenarios, understanding customer pulses better, focusing on some of these initiatives in a lot more structured way is something that we've been doing, given what we need to do over the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. I think so. Some of the pointers you spoke about, especially around digital transformation, but I think so it's a good segue. Like Arjun, 11 years with Edge. What are you witnessing, and how has that the business impact has been for Edge?
One of the things that I saw early in the day, and this is no sort of Nostradamus sort of reaction, but I'm sure a lot of people in the market witnessed this during the turn of 21 going into 22. Literally, I was with my head of engineering at that time in October 21, telling him that, April 22 would be a good time to hire because there's going to be a fallout of this crazy hype that's going on. And, probably in August, as much as many VCs knew it and our investors, Kalari Ventures and Xfinity, advised us that December would be sort of the turning point, or December of 22 would be the turning point where Christmas and the Christmas holidays would get over, and then Jan, Feb, March would be the real deal, which means that what we're seeing unraveling in front of us, as we call global uncertainty, is a lot of financial collapse, right? And this is our own doing. We've sort of done this in 2008, 2009. And there are specific countries and regions that have suffered the most, which the ripple effect is also India. So we as a company sort of saw a lot of this coming through the gates. And what I see as writing on the wall is, as a company continuing to build a profitable business is something very important and true to us. For that, you need to keep your team together. You need to really build a culture like, I think we all understand and we know that culture is important, but it really becomes super important, like glue, for you to bind, innovation into good product development at a time like this, where you double down and you start building stuff that appeals to you. You're not running a race now. You don't have to go 3x, 4x, 5x and sort of chase the value signals, right? I think those are the clear indicators of what one should do. And you've also got to figure out how to make pivots in your strategy that are radically important, like what you'd call revenue optimization, which is a nice way of saying that you're going to cut costs and you're going to change gears, maybe even ditch a few product lines. I think these things are super important for you to see another day. And then you can figure out whether you can rebuild through that lens of seeing that you are one of the survivors. So I think survival is really key, and we got to really pay attention to what that means for ourselves and our teams building a future.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Like, it's like a personal story for me also. In my experience, last so many years, I've been partnering a lot with many startups and VC. And a common topic actually surfaced in my discussion is, around being adaptive more than reactive at the end of the day. Sure. I think that's the need of the game. And that is where I see like it's been very tough on leaders when we don't know where things are headed. Our teams actually want direction, they want certainty, but not all organizations can give that. I'm glad to hear, some of the things you spoke about, where you probably foresee that, and you thought about culture being probably that glue at the end of the day. So it's actually very important to acknowledge that, am I being a leader who's really reactive, or am I really adaptive to the situation at the end of the day? Yeah, we probably did a research at LinkedIn, and we found out 22% of the APAC leaders also agree that adaptive leadership is probably the top skill required post-COVID, post this funding winter, and many things global economic turned down. And then another 23% believe that maintaining that workforce connection, trust, and transparency is really crucial. So probably taking that leaf out, and we did hear you about Arjun, but would love to hear Karunya, from Toyota, technology incorporated organization perspective. You've been a digital transformation partner to multiple industries around the world, addressing diverse customer needs, for them to scale at the end of the day. In your entrepreneurial journey, would love to hear your thoughts on, how do you see being adaptive, and how are you implementing that in Toyota at the end of the day?
I think that's a beautiful question right now. See, adaptability is no more, I believe, an option. I think it's become necessary. The mindset of being adaptable has become necessary. At the early stages of the company, we had witnessed the economic meltdown back in 2008. But during those years, we went bullish. We decided to hire a lot of talent back in the day, and a lot of them are still with us for over a decade right now with the company, and key part of the growth of the company today. Right now, the way we've seen it across different phases of Toyota is your strategies cannot always be focused on the ups and downs, cyclic ups and downs. Right? It is very, very prudent to take calculated, to take the calculated risks and have, very tight physical planning during your downturns. But what's important is to overall have a definitive and constant messaging on the larger vision that you're driving towards as a company, and have that kind of a buy-in that comes with the kind of open, transparent, regular communication top down, where you have your teams buy into the larger vision. So when that happens, right, now you have your teams and your employees understand what they're driving forward to, and then what it means to do, and why it is necessary to take certain actions during these downturns. That understanding is certainly prevalent, right? That again, that level of transparency kind of also creates the trust, right? And in this sense, some of the other things that we're doing, working with clients in terms of modeling or restructuring some of our engagement models in a way that is sort of a win-win, and we create sort of a partnership vibe where we're looking out for each other. But at the end of it all, we are all getting affected in one sense or the other. So understanding the pulse of where they are and how this is going to impact them over the next 2 years, and contractually how it is that we can support each of us is very, very, very important. See, end of it all, I think stakeholder management, internal versus external, is essential. It's all about relationships with employees or with clients. It's about that, right? So us taking care of it, having the necessary structures and financial models, like I said earlier on, the contractual models or the employee, welfare policies and everything that has come more into the limelight, COVID and post-COVID, is something we're focusing on. The other thing that's definitely come up in certain areas that pop up for us as a company to focus on is, from the sense of, to your question of how do we look at being adaptive, is definitely look at stronger physical planning, as I said earlier. And how do you do that? Focus on areas of cost management. We are tightening down on cash flow management. Customer retention is key. Customer experience, customer success is key, right? Workforce wellness. At the end of it all, there are two entities for entrepreneurs like us, which are important. It's the employees and the customers. And any initiatives in and around these two is vital. And we keep going back to the drawing board to see what we can do to strengthen in these two areas, right? So, yeah, I guess these are some of the areas that as Toyota, we are focusing on to kind of have sustenance as a team, when there are so many external factors, that is something that you're not in control of. And these areas and initiatives around these are something that we will continue to focus on.
Yeah, no, some great examples, and especially from your organization perspective, you spoke about Karunya. Arjun, like literally on the same thread, like, do you really feel that this adaptive approach means you really taking a step back? And if so, is that a good or a bad thing in your opinion?
Well, an adaptive approach, like Karunya said, is certainly a necessity, right? So you don't know it, but you're really building an adaptive approach. And I think we were very well schooled for those who were born before COVID and survived COVID, right? And at least the bad part of COVID was when it initially hit us, and the world was reeling from its effect, right? And I saw that even initially when we hit COVID in March 2020. I had good friends of mine who were entrepreneurs who mentored me and told me, listen, downgrade forecast by 80%, cut salaries by 50%. And honestly, a lot of people didn't know why I was doing that in April. And they were like, no, but this is not something that you should do, right? As in even our colleagues at work. And I was like, you're really not seeing what's going to be happening, right? So I think when they came into, say, July, August, they realized that they were still getting paid. They will still continue to getting a salary and a job, and they had security while we went into a hype cycle thereafter, right? But keeping that in mind, I think that schooled us well. Being adaptive is the nature of an entrepreneur, good or bad. I think we just have that kind of sense of survival. But the reasons why a lot of startups fail is due to bad cash management, right? And obviously the business model didn't work, because I think it's priority number one, but cash management is pretty up there in terms of why people die. It's not really the technology and sales, it's also about reading the science. And one of the things that one should do right now is focus on fiscal strength and figure out ways to convince your people within the journey now that the next 18 months is going to be tough, right? And my view is the next 12 months is certainly going to be tough. And the next 6 months thereafter, we're going to start seeing things settle down in terms of measuring up to the upside, which markets tend to do. Will we learn from this? I just doubt it. I think the world has a way of doing this again and again. All we get is more attuned to measuring how to work within a sort of a down cycle like this, and figure out how to make it par for the course. So it is difficult. It is what we go through. It is these conversations that help us strengthen our sense of survival and fiscal jurisprudence. I think it's very, very important for us to exercise that now. Decisions that you wait for even for 2 weeks might be deadly for you. So you need to look at your numbers, look at most of our, money goes in headcount, goes in infrastructure if you're a SaaS company. So where can you optimize and think about it differently? And it doesn't mean cutting people. It means thinking about it. And, somebody was telling me this, large companies don't face this. Large companies face it. It's just that it's, you don't realize that they are facing it and they're reeling from it. Disney is, doing a cost cutting of some $5.5 billion, 7,000 people are getting laid off. A company that we thought would continue, and I'm sure people were proud to go to work to, like Credit Suisse, is gone, right? So what do you say for that? So I think these are things that we have to look at. And as entrepreneurs, it's not about discerning the big to the small. It's about individuals working another day. And I think it's very important to build that strength of clarity.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think so. It doesn't matter whether you're big, medium, or small. It doesn't matter, what is the time all about. You could be probably in the best of the world scenario versus maybe a kind of a recession. I think so. You still have to be very prudent and, keep looking at some of the pointers which you spoke about, which also talks about, like, I'm gonna take a leaf out of it, and you and Karunya, both of you spoke about it, like, something around culture and values. Like, if we look at LinkedIn, we really take our culture and values very seriously. To be very frank, if you really ask me, I think so that's our greatest competitive advantage. Our culture and values really helped us attract thousands of new employees. We re-attract hundreds of employees back to LinkedIn in the last couple of years, which also led us to probably have an approach of hybrid work. We also look at that the global average of people who value company culture as top priority is 40%. Employees really say, stay at the company because they really feel it that do they have opportunities to learn or grow. Really would love to understand from you, Arjun, and I'm going to quote you, you mentioned it on LinkedIn also, that you're really a staunch believer that growth is a two-way street. It's at the intersection that the organization's success is intertwined with the individual personal success. Would like for you to share your thoughts around are your culture and values still applicable and relative in the current environment? And do you see any practices you have adopted, and especially in last couple of years, to change and improve that?
Yeah, see, we had the benefit of a good set of people as strategy consultants. There's a company called Design and Change back in the day who advised us. And one of the most remarkable comments was connect your personal success to organization success, right? And that intersection is very important. Otherwise, you leave the job. You're not really thinking that this is your own function. Like, for instance, my benefit is that I have a product head or an engineering head or a data science head thinking about the company being, the function being theirs, and they are representing their function as a business. My HR head thinks radically about that and thinks very carefully about the people as she would of an HR company, right? Who are marketing talent and building talent, right? And culture, is so important in building productivity, so you get outcomes that the company is aligning to, right? And I think the small takeaway was the personal success to organization success, which is really huge for me, right? And I've been just saying this to a lot of people that you got to be able to make that connect. And our mantra is to connect 1 billion professionals to meaningful jobs. What do you mean by meaningful jobs? It's at an intersection of economically and emotionally meaningful, right? If that's what works for me, then my mind, wallet, and heart are really connecting, and I can figure out how to really give it 100% day on day out. And I kid you not, it is just the people in an organization that embody that kind of culture with a sense of transparency that what's going on, right? You're giving them the straight and narrow. When we went through difficult times, at some point, our investors, the VCs might think, hey, that's information that should be just privy to you. Don't let it, go down to all the people in the org, because it just might have a very bad effect and people might take flight, which is probably true. But I think I proved it otherwise. If you're transparent and you tell people to double down and, live through this, they do. And I think I'm a big believer in people. I think culturally we've been successful with understanding what motivates people and making sure that we're trying to align that super solid. We build products to make sure that people are aligned to jobs that are meaningful to them. So hence we embody that culture. It's just part of our DNA.
Yeah, I love that. I've seen many of the startups or even the bigger organization who's probably investing a lot of time to probably reassess what their culture would look like, because that's going to be eventually the goal to their success, and because it's all about the people and what you built in. But that also talks about, as you move away from culture, and both of you again spoke about it some time back, are we looking really at profitability or scalability? We've seen India probably achieve about 100 odd unicorns by May 2022 last year. And then we saw funding winter set in, a lot of valuations came down, and probably by December 2022, we probably were left standing at 85 odd. We do see VC funding is drying up. Investors, at the end of the day, their expectations are really going high. And that is where the idea of ProfitCon or profitable startup is emerging. Karunya, would love to hear your thoughts. If you really look at Payoda's growth trajectory over the past few years, would you really, say it makes sense for your startup to really reprioritize profitable growth, over rapid scale, or do you probably have some other thoughts here?
Little background of Payoda, I'd like to give you here before I try and answer this question. So while today Payoda is a services company, it's parented or over the years successfully spun out product companies, in one of which has handled large investments, right? And we have a few more at different stages. So when it comes to product companies and invested product companies, there's been a sense of to burn through your investments to kind of capture the market, right? And that's kind of what you end up doing if you're in the early stage of the hype cycle and so on and so forth. But at the same time, while I've seen us doing that in the product companies for the services, for what Payoda does today at its core, we've been conservative, right? It's been about the bottom line. We've been bootstrapped all along, Payoda and itself, the parent company itself. And what that's taught us to do over the years is to survive, and survive to sustain means profitability, right? So I think it's been built into our core and our DNA that we are always, always prudent about cash flow decisions, budget decisions. And it's not always easy. I think it's the name of the game that you wake up and you're dealing with the challenge. And today, whether it's what I do or what my teams do, I think leadership top down looks at solving problems. Let me rephrase that. I wouldn't call it problems. Solving challenges every day, right? In these aspects is something that we live to do. That's the job, right? So it's not ever been easy that way. We will go through those cycles. But I think going back to the basics of building a structure, building a company to be profitable is essential, right? While growth is important, I wouldn't discount growth. I don't think profitability exists without the structure of growth. Then again, we've had different strategies for our product companies as well as the service company. There have been phases where we've invested more in R&D, invested more in people, so on and so forth, where you've taken. So it's been a phase-wise decision. Again, while you're in your downturns, in these down external, in these economic downtimes that we go through, we tighten our belts and we get a lot more careful in terms of budget planning and cash flow planning, right? End of it all, keep your eye on the ball, right? What's the larger vision? Where are you going? I think that's a good balance of both that we need to bring to the table, whether it's services or products, and that's something we've done. But today, what has happened with the shifting landscape in the equity markets, right? Even for product companies, it's not burn and at any cost, right? It's about reasonable and sensible planning. It's about today having the right check boxes to ensure you have the expected outcomes. Otherwise, being agile and nimble in terms of taking a quarterly review of where you stand, scaling back. I think we've gone through a lot of those cycles over the years, right? We've had to scale back. We've had to look at budgetary cuts. We've had to have different strategies to adjust, right? I think that culture and mindset of being nimble and quick in decision making is also something that helps you kind of bridge and balance this whole growth. I wouldn't say growth versus profitability. It's both. I think you need to do both. You will have phases where one slightly has an edge over the other, but it's never a versus. It has to be optimal growth with optimal profitability.
Yeah, Karunya, I think so you couldn't have put it in a better way. Clearly showcase how Payoda as an organization has not been surviving, but also has been thriving for the last so many years on a very consistent basis. But on the other side, as I'm meeting with a lot of customers, partners, there are a few things which are getting very clear for me. Like, just as we see or we've seen customers accelerate their digital spend during the pandemic, we are now seeing them optimize their spend also. A lot of organizations are exercising caution, given the macroeconomic uncertainty. Customers are accelerating spending during the pandemic versus now what they are doing, as they want to get the most value out of their spend, rather really increasing their spend at the end of the day. This is literally what we call it as a great rationalization. And that brings me to the last question of this chat, Arjun, to you. Like, many Indian startups have claimed that they've been building a back-breaking pace for almost a decade now, and really perceiving this shift as a welcome change to reassess. As things are slowing down a bit and there is more focus on the fundamentals, what is your organization doing to embrace this shift?
So one is just to give Karunya kudos that she's had the fundamentals right from the beginning. And for me, I didn't have the fundamentals right from the beginning. I can say that very clearly. Financial management, not my strength, screwed up quite a bit. So I've seen cycles of how to manage and survive through the process. Have I become more tempered and reasonable to look it in the face? Yes. What it takes in terms of its toll, and I think not just now, but in the past maybe 6 to 9 months, what people have been facing is the actual translation from the high to the low, right? Where we have seen, Google lay off people and, the way they lay people off, and all of that has started coming out. Whether right or wrong, people can judge, and people who are working for a living are continuously assessing what they are doing and how they're spending their time, right? So it started becoming a lot more relevant to people to not break their backs without undue, disadvantage to their future, right? So you need to really look at what you're doing, why you're doing it, and make sense of it. And I think that's really also something that I personally go through. I have a life coach. I sometimes work out twice a day because I'm de-stressing, right? Personally, it takes a toll because as an entrepreneur, you're probably the least paid person within the company for various reasons, because investors believe that you make your money on capital gains. So you don't take a salary, you take a minimum salary. That's usually the discounted way that you work through a system like this, right? Or an environment like this. And it's painful. The process is painful, right? You have to figure out what it really is worth at the end of the day. What I do enjoy is I enjoy what I do because I like being in this space of HR tech. I like, generative AI. I just think technology can solve so many things. It's just unreal. So I'm very passionate about it, and that keeps me waking up every day to work through that day. In fact, as a company, we work on an OKR system. We live life in 90 days. It makes things a little bit more capsulated and real. And how do you deal with the whole, I got to work 24/7. I got to be available. We are a small company, so hence we have to bend over backwards. How do you change that gear? In fact, I was on a customer call in the US, and I was taking it at 9 p.m. at night because I was overseas, and my colleagues were taking it at 7:30 p.m. And this was a call which was turning for the contract. And at the end of the call, I just said, team, whoever's organizing the subsequent calls, don't organize it on a Friday evening because it's not going to be really productive for us, right? So think of it differently. Now, these are things that I think are very important to recognize as you make calls, because the people who are listening to it from your team and the team across will respect you for it. I think these are important things. They're small things, but are real to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I again like to bring it to the point. These smallest steps really build your culture, and that, in turn takes it to what people are learning, how they're behaving, and at the end of the day, how they're creating impact for the customer as well as for the organizations. Great. So, I probably, not only love the conversation, there were so many nuggets at the end of the day. I really thought which is there for everyone and all of us to probably hear and learn it through both of your journey. If I really were to summarize, this conversation, some of my key takeaways are definitely, which both of you pointed out, culture of a company could really become a single driver for them to gain or have that competitive advantage. The other one I really thought about it, it's in today's ever-changing world, being adaptive at leadership or otherwise is the number one skill probably, one should be focused upon or probably embrace upon if you really want to grow as a leader and really grow your organization at the end of the day. And last but not the least, I know Karunya also spoke about it, and you also, Arjun, profitability over growth or even over scale. I think is probably going to be the long-term sustainable mantra for startups and even for enterprises or any other organization, irrespective of the time period you are running that. So
Sure.
at the end, thank you so much, both Karunya and Arjun. Like, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Grateful for these golden nuggets of wisdom that you both candidly shared, today from your life journeys across your organization. I believe there's a lot of learning from this for the audience, and as we navigate through the times ahead. And I personally learned a lot at the end of the day. On this note, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Mihika Chopra, who will now give us an overview.